Engage this, viewers. Let's speak to Vedic scholar, author, Dr. David Frawley, who's with us. Dr. Frawley, first, let's just speak a little bit about the concept of a dharmic nation, a dharm rashtra. Is it a theocratic state?
Well, first of all, Rahul, thank you for inviting me here. This is a very important topic and one full of misinterpretation, and partly because these terms like dharma do not have equivalence in Western politics, and because of that, they are often misinterpreted or scaled down into something very different overall. And the fact is, we live in an interdependent and unitary universe in which there are common laws, forces, energies, elements, worlds, life, and so forth. So there is a unity to life. At the same time, it is not limited to what we could call human ideological politics or human simply religious beliefs that have been imposed at one particular point of time. So dharma is a reality, and it means the right way of doing things and relating things and understanding things. We all live on the earth. We have to understand the proper dharma relative to the earth, the soil, the plants, the waters. There is a harmony in nature and a harmony in consciousness within us that we need to understand. That is dharma.
Let's build on this. Many say that there are a variety of moral aesthetic visions that have shaped the cultural universe. Yes. Jaina, Shaiva, Vaishnava, Islamic, Christian, and they can't be all reconciled under the vision of one all-knowing figure like Ram. So how do you react to this, that in this itself there is a problem?
Well, first of all, we need to understand that Ram here is indicating, symbolizing, and manifesting dharma. Dharma also means you do what is the best possible at any given moment and circumstance. It is not a fixed law over all, and there is a universal dharma. Let's take this whole idea of ahimsa and non-harming. No living being wants to be harmed. You don't want to be harmed. So recognizing the laws of the universe, you don't harm anyone. It doesn't require a theological belief, and it doesn't require the imposition of one person or group upon another. So Ram is indicating these greater teachings, and when we turn him just into a particular person at a particular point of time, we miss that.
We miss that. Explain to people how dharma is very different from religion.
Well, first of all, mostly what we call religion in the world is the Western view of monotheism. Belief in one God, one book, one savior, one prophet. The dharmic traditions are different in that what they hold is that we live in a conscious universe. Everything is sacred, alive, aware, and there's a universal self behind everything that is within all living beings. So in that way, there is not an imposition of a belief. There is not a need to convert, to conquer, to control. There's not a need to just simply repeat certain ideas that are true always. There's a need for adaptation, respect, honoring, and embracing this wonderful universe in which we live and getting out of our petty human conflicts over one belief or another.
Well, people say that if dharma is so universal, it is so all-inclusive, how is it that the Hindu tradition manifested itself in caste and other contradictory ideas to dharma?
Well, the problem is we don't understand these things. For example, what is the Hindu idea of varna? The Hindu idea of varna is that society should follow the model of nature and the model of the human being, where you have one body, but you have different functions, hands, feet, eyes, ears. So the functions are different, but the being is one. The Hindu tradition says, Purushe Vedam Sarvam. Everything is one self, one being, one universal reality. The difference are of function. They are not of being, and they're of a practical, temporary function in society which is necessary.
Let's move a little forward. will a dharma inspired by a Sanatani outlook, for example, be acceptable to other traditions? Even, for example, within the larger Hindu conglomeration, animist tribals, or beyond that, some adherents of, as you said, monotheistic religions?
Well, what we need to understand is that the Hindu view of Dharma is also one of self-realization, doing what is best possible for yourself, your capacities, your society, the nature around you. It's adaptation to the reality of life and consciousness. It's not imposition, imposing a human ideology upon others. So nature-based people all over the world live in harmony with nature. They know all kinds of plants, they know the stars, they have to know how the elements are, and they see the sacred everywhere. So the Dharmic traditions also say, let us honor the sacred everywhere.
Is Sanatan Dharma in conflict with basic constitutional values?
We have to understand what are basic constitutional values. These are something that have been invented in the Western world over the past few centuries. They haven't ended wars. In fact, the Western nation states have created so many wars and so many political ideologies that go on today. Dharmic values meaning you have to honor the nature of things. Fire burns. You can't say fire doesn't burn. And there are certain universal values. We want peace, we want harmony. You don't have to impose that from the outside. But to achieve that, you have to have a sense of the unity of life, not simply one community, one person, one belief over one country over everything else.
So let's just interrogate this a little bit. If a government were to amend the preamble to the Constitution, yes, for example, and remove the word secular and inject dharmic, would that in any way be ultra-virus of the broad outlook of the Constitution? The fact that it emphasizes secularism, the freedom to profess religion, speak your mind, etc. You know, the basic, yes, the basic rights, the language of rights.
I think that's a historical misinterpretation. If you look at the Indian independence movement, whether it was Tilak, Aurobindo, even Gandhi, all these leaders, you do not find the word secular used at all. And you don't find that view used of even secular socialists. These were imposed upon the Constitution during Indira Gandhi's emergency, in which the Constitution and democracy was violated and thrown out. So it's a misleading thing to say. Now, in that regard, every culture has a certain identity, as it were. India, as Bharat, is the oldest civilization in the world. It has endured from the pyramids of Egypt through modern times, through medieval times. It is a civilization. And as a civilization, it's given us not only the Hindu, the Buddhist, the Jain, Ayurveda, it's given mantra, Sanskrit, pursuing states of consciousness, and not imposing itself. Hindus have never tried to conquer other countries in the name of religion or convert other people in the name of religion. And even in the West, all secularism meant was removing the influence of the Catholic state from the European governments, which you did have in medieval and even later Europe. So this is misinterpreted in the Indian context. Dharma is honoring unity, connection, harmony, adaptation. What you call secularism is generally the imposition of certain rules and regulations that keep people divided against each other and make sure each vote bank has a certain power that can be controlled.
That's interesting, because some would say that India gave itself a positive secularism, that even when it set out to perhaps imbibe from the West, it didn't do the Western sense any justice either. If there is, of course, justice done in the West to their view of secularism, that, of course, is a separate debate. But if one were to take the theoretical definition of secularism, complete separation of church or of religion and state, that also hasn't really happened in this country. Though we call ourselves a secular country and we've defined ourselves as one even in the Constitution.
Yes, but what's happened in the India context is the non-secular, exclusive, belief-based religions have been honored. And the Hindu tradition, which is not into exclusivism, which is into diversity and many paths of experience, has no rights even over its own temples. So this has been a negative imposition of Western secularism to keep the Hindu tradition down, whereas the Hindu tradition, unlike a lot of the Western religious tradition, never opposed science, art, or the rest of culture that was thrown out in various inquisitions and caused various dark ages, because the Bharatiya view of civilization is a way of knowledge, not only of the outer world, but also of the greater universe.
Thank you, Dr. Frawley, for putting this into perspective for us.